Hello, everyone, and welcome back. In today's session, we're going to explore one of the most dynamic and intellectually enriching fields in literature: comparative literature. This is not just another literary subject, it's an entire way of seeing literature beyond borders, across cultures, and through time. So, if you've ever wondered how stories from different parts of the world can speak to each other, or how literature from one place influences another, this is exactly what comparative literature helps us understand. Let's begin with the basic idea. Comparative literature is a discipline that moves beyond the boundaries of any one national literature. It looks at literary works from different cultures, languages, and historical periods. Instead of focusing only on one language, like English or Tamil, it invites us to study and compare texts from various literary traditions. At its heart, comparative literature seeks to understand literature as a global phenomenon. It's about examining how texts from different parts of the world interact with one another, influence each other, and reflect the wider patterns of human thought and cultural expression. Now, unlike traditional literary studies which usually focus on literature within a single nation or language, comparative literature takes a broader approach. It asks us to look at both the similarities and the differences that exist across languages, time periods, and cultures. Through this method, we develop a more refined appreciation of the universal themes that connect all human beings, such as love, loss, hope, and struggle, as well as the unique ways in which different cultures express these ideas. This broader view deepens our understanding of literature itself and also of the human experience that lies beneath it. One of the most important reasons why comparative literature matters today is because of its ability to build intercultural understanding. We live in a world that's increasingly interconnected. Cultures are constantly coming into contact, ideas are being exchanged at a rapid pace, and literature is one of the best ways to trace these movements. By putting literary texts from different traditions into conversation with one another, comparative literature shows us how cultures borrow from, learn from, and transform each other's ideas. It encourages us to step outside of our own cultural lens and see how others experience the world, and in doing so, it fosters empathy, openness, and global awareness. It's also a field that develops our critical thinking skills. When we engage in comparative analysis, we're asked to pay attention to small but meaningful differences in how texts are written, how genres are used, and how stories evolve in different cultural settings. We also begin to notice how literary forms change when they travel from one place to another, how certain motifs or themes adapt, how techniques evolve, and how styles are influenced across borders. In this way, comparative literature helps us understand how literature grows through contact and exchange, and how no tradition exists in isolation. One of the central aspects is influence. This refers to how one literary work, author, or tradition affects another. Influence can be direct, like an author openly drawing from another's ideas, or indirect, happening over time through cultural transmission. When we study influence, we trace how ideas, styles, and themes move across borders and how one writer or culture inspires another. Genre studies is another important area which compares literary forms across cultures and time periods. This includes epics, tragedies, comedies, novels, and more. Scholars look at how genres develop, how they influence each other, and how they are reshaped in different societies. It shows the movement and evolution of literary conventions. We also look at movements and trends. Comparative literature studies how major literary movements like Romanticism, Realism, or Modernism began in one part of the world and spread elsewhere. It examines how these movements were adapted in different regions and how they influenced global literary development. Another rich field is the connection between literature and other arts. Literature doesn't exist in a vacuum. It often interacts with painting, music, film, and architecture. Comparative literature explores how these art forms influence each other and how a story or poem might take on a new life when adapted into another medium. Literature and philosophy is an area that looks at how literary texts reflect or explore philosophical ideas. Literature often poses deep questions about life, morality, identity, and existence. all central concerns of philosophy. Studying this connection helps us see how stories become a space for philosophical reflection. The link between literature and sociology is also vital. Here we analyze how literature portrays society, institutions, and social norms. It reveals how texts reflect, critique, or reinforce ideas about class, gender, race, and power. Through literature, we can understand the cultural and political realities of a given time and place. Finally, literature and psychology looks at how literature explores human emotions, behavior, and mental processes. Characters become a window into the human mind. Their motivations, conflicts, and inner journeys can be studied using psychological theories, adding depth to our understanding of both the character and the culture they represent. All of these aspects, from influence and analogy to psychology and sociology, give comparative literature its richness. Each one offers a new lens through which to examine how literature is created, received, and understood around the world. In conclusion, comparative literature is a subject that brings the world's voices together. It's not just about comparing texts, but about understanding how literature expresses the human experience in its many forms. It helps us think deeply, connect broadly, and read with both intellect and empathy. If you enjoyed this explanation and found it helpful, do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more literature lessons made simple and clear. Drop your thoughts or doubts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next session.